when I started in the business, it was in Canada, in Vancouver, and we both actually started being PAs on set. And it was a great learning ground to see all the different jobs that you could do, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you were interested in. And
what everyone else did.
What everyone else does.
Because it was a good observational place to be in.
Yeah, and then when we moved from Canada, we were living there for about a year. We ended up
decided we didn't want to be on set.
Yeah, decided not to be on set and try the post-production side of it, and it was so much nicer. It was like,
and it's really where the movie gets made,
yeah.
And that's what we discovered coming here.
Yeah, you see every element of things
and
that sort of feel like more part of the
and you
process.
see how it changes, because being PAs, we would watch previews, we would watch, you know, we'd start at the beginning with the dailies and then the assembly, the director's cut, and eventually you'd get to previews, and then when there would be results that maybe weren't favourable, they would change the film, and the entire film could change in
based on
a matter of weeks.
Audience reactions and stuff, yeah.
And it was really cool to see the same film like 3 different times, 3 different ways.
3 different ways, yeah.
And through different eyes, and
even more importantly, just getting to experience working on a film through through production, post-production, and until its release date. You sort of have that rewarding feeling, especially towards the very end of the process, where you see all the visual effects come together, all the score and the composition, all the songs get thrown in there, and the edit has been so much more refined at that point, and the story sort of flows a lot better. And then you sort of finishing this film, this creative thing, you're getting to see come to life at the very end of that process. Whereas when you work for us, when we worked on set, one of the problems with that is it's very technical, and there's lots of equipment and people doing things, and a lot of those are very necessary jobs, obviously, but it didn't feel like you were sort of part of the process of making a movie.
Not only that, I remember one film, we worked on it for a number of months, and then it didn't come out till a year later. And it was like, well, what were they doing this whole time, and how did they spend this long on it? So there was a curiosity to see where a film went after being on set. Back in film school, working on little documentaries that we did ourselves, like 15-minute things, and it was we'd shoot on like VHS tapes, and it was tape-to-tape editing. So that was my first experience, and then later on, even in a TV station, we were working on 3/4-inch tapes. So, and then eventually, when we came to America, we started both working on film. We were splicing film together, and making work prints, to the point now where we never see film. Now it's solely on the Avid.
One of the first things I remember cutting together was just a little home movie, at best, if it was that, from a trip that we did actually to Japan, and it was just starting to put something together, and I don't think I even completed something. It was just sort of the initial stages of cutting something together.
We should pull those.
We're going to do some of that, by the way.
Pull that out now.
So I was putting something together there, and just the creative juices start flowing, and it just becomes exciting. And even just throwing some music down underneath it and making it play, it was so simple and straightforward and very easy. And then, of course, being fortunate enough to work with some amazingly talented people on films over the years, you just got slowly but surely, I was able to cut more and more things, and as a part of the film. And those experiences are just, you're always constantly learning too. It's never, okay, that's good, I'm done, we're good. I think everybody feels that way being creative. There's never any right or wrong with it. It's just different takes and different choices, and it's an exciting thing to do, is to be part of movie making. So it's like a dream come true. For me, it's really seeing the thing come together. Yeah. It's always frustrating at the beginning.
Seeing it come to life.
Seeing it come to life. It's, cutting dailies at the beginning of any project, it's exciting because you're seeing and responding to the material for the first time, the performances, and seeing how they shot stuff on set, and that's always sort of the positive side to cutting dailies, but it does become a bit of a behemoth to get over that sort of period. And then once you get into the post-production side of it, you can have much more fun playing around with the material.
Also, the sound isn't smooth. When you're first cutting things together, like everything can take you out of what you're trying to create.
Yeah.
So as you smooth out the sound and maybe add some music or whatever, it comes to life and becomes something that hopefully you can be proud of and at least show your director and then work from there. But where it starts, it's, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that you get this feeling of elation in a way when something actually works, and it's the struggle to get to that feeling. I learned entirely on the job, working with fantastic assistants who, like the first time I went in, it was with an assistant who I was friends with, and he was explaining to me how a timeline worked and how we had layers. And I didn't understand it. I remember being like, huh? What? Like, I really came from that basic a place. And then just being on the job and having people teach you things and repetition, and it all just, it falls into place. Like once you know it, it's kind of second nature. I
was fortunate enough, it sort of was a shift and a turning point in my career to be on a film, Mission Impossible 3. And believe it or not, even in 2005, I think, when we were making that film, the editing room still had film, like 35mm film. We were still on benches, winding, cutting and splicing. And of course, the editors were working on Avid systems, and there was a bunch of assistants working on Avids, but that we were conforming a work picture together so that we could screen on film. So for me, on that particular movie, I was fortunate enough that there was a big crew on that film, and I could learn from so many different people doing very different jobs, from visual effects editors to visual effects assistants to first assistants and second assistant editors, and it was just very similar to Kristen's experience of like just doing it on the job, and there was sort of no better way to do it than in a real world working environment, making a big film like that, to understand all the different sides of it.
Yeah. There was like kind of fights going on in cutting rooms because we were so limited in the number of Avids that we had that all of the film assistants were trying to get on the Avids. So we had to stay late, we had to do whatever we could, and I mean, I personally remember, you know, having issues with people I worked with who were saying that I was trying to jump rank because I was the one staying late and getting on the Avid.
Yeah, and you know, it's never about that for us. It's always about just learning and
it was just that specific period of time. There was like 3 or 4 years where everyone was just needed to learn the Avid for survival.
So yeah, just, you know, staying back, you know, after hours, and if, you know, if other people were working and doing real jobs and real tasks, you know, within their jobs, it was really great to learn from other people who had more experience and had worked on Avid, and then of course once you get it, the learning curves, you know, for us it was a little slow at the beginning just because I wasn't very computer savvy when I started out, and then you know, once you get it, it's very, very much, you know, repetition and the same thing that you do over and over again.
And it becomes intuitive.
Yeah.
Like, the more you do it, I was fortunate to work with a number of different crews and different assistants, so I learned a lot of different shortcuts, which benefited me for years. Like, I mean, we're still talking a few years ago, but an assistant I worked with was like, how do you know all of these shortcuts? How do you know how to do it so fast? And I'd like to take credit for it, but it was really everyone who helped me along the way.
Yeah, learning from other people.
Yeah.
Who are experienced and have been doing it for a long time. But that was one of the frustrating things in my own mind when I was starting to learn Avid, is I kept worrying about, oh, well, what is everybody else doing? Because everybody else who's experienced knows that there's this really fast way to do something, and I don't know that. So I'm going to take probably this really long way to do something, and ultimately the end result's the same. So it's just experience, and over time learning from people, and you pick up little shortcuts and little faster ways to do things, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're off and running.
And it's just doing it. It's just doing it. Working, sitting with your Avid and working on it.
Yeah, nothing like real world or real time, you know, just playing around on the system and figuring stuff out and having fun with it. You know, that's what it's there.
It is fun.
It's a creative tool. It's a
and
technical tool.
even now, like, I'm still discovering things. I go in there and discover new things, or I was like, oh, I could do it this way. That's so much faster. Start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. That's what we all have to do, I feel like.
There's no replacement for experience, for learning how a cutting room works and how things are done. Like, you might technically be fantastic, but you know, you really need to learn about the system.
The sort of dynamic of working with a team of people, even if that team of people is only 2 or 3 people, if it's a small crew, a small film or something. But
you're always interacting with producers and directors and people beyond your actual crew, the sound people, the music people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn sort of beyond the tools. The tools are a great starting point.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I'll just add to it, which is kind of, you know, outside the box a little bit, is being flexible and having a good attitude around people, you know, and being enthusiastic. I mean, you know, working in films is such a long, you're there for so many hours a day, in the week, in a month, on projects, and they go up and down. You'll go through periods where you do less hours and periods where you do more hours. But when you're working with a you know, good group of people, you want to be around, you know, fun, exciting, enthusiastic people. You know, the last thing you want to do is like, oh, I have to go to work today. If you're feeling like that, maybe it's time to choose a different.
If you don't want to get coffee, it's not going to work. I still get coffee.
But you know, I would say, you know, kind of reiterating what we've already said, is to say to people who are starting out, just really start at the beginning. Try to get an editing PA job on anything. Yeah. And then, you know, just get some experience doing any of it, you know, whether it's reality TV, television series, films, independent, making something with a friend at home. It doesn't really matter what. But just get in there and start doing stuff, and you'll learn. And
don't feel like you know everything already, because there's so much that you can learn from someone else and how they do it, and maybe you can teach them something, but maybe they can also teach you something.
And one key point about that too is, even after being in the business for 15 years or so, we're still learning. All of us are still learning. Even our bosses are still learning. Every project is different, and everything. And
technology changes.
Technology always changes.
Like, keep your mind open.
Yeah. So being sort of flexible and fluid with the way things move, and you know, having a good attitude is sort of the key ingredient to start off.
And take every opportunity that you have to meet people, and you know, you never know where your next job will come from. Even us now.
That's true.
You could be giving us a job tomorrow. With Media Composer First, you have everything at your disposal. You have the exact same tools that we use working on the big films.
All I can say to that too is, I wish I had something like Media Composer First when I started out, because, you know, just to be able to have a free program, doesn't cost anything. I'm struggling to find work. Having it on a laptop or a computer at home, you can, like I said before, you can play around on it. Just spend some time, mess around with stuff, and you can start to sort of understand how the program works, even on a basic level. Will just get you ahead of so many other people. The question is, why wouldn't you learn it? Really, it's free. There's no real reason not to. You got to learn Media Composer. All of the TV shows and movies in the business that we know, at least in Hollywood, they're all working on Media Composer. And you know, maybe there's an exception to that rule, and maybe sometimes there is someone doing it on a different piece of software or something. But you know, for the most part, it's such a, you know, Avid Media Composer is such a solid benchmark as an editing program for finishing a feature film on the most largest of levels, that it will also work on every other level. You don't have to use the deep well that's in there.
I think this is a great place to start. If this is the career that you want a career editing, working like at the top end, like on the big Hollywood features, like everything is done on Avid.